Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of our pastor, Father Dave, and Grand Knight Ken Gerard, thanks for joining us tonight at the Knights of Columbus Adult Faith Formation Series. Before we begin, we have some general housekeeping notes to go over. Restrooms, and most of you are familiar, but it is restrooms will be outside on the west side of the school. We have doors 3 and 2. There are restrooms just inside both of those doors, a little closer if you go to door 3. Door 2, you have to go into the school a little bit. To that point, there is babysitting available through door number 2. So if you have children and you want to drop them off over there, please do that. Mrs. Cass is there in her classroom. Again, that's through door number 2. A special note is we will have live stream and recording available via YouTube. And it's on channel at St. Mary of the Assumption, Avilla. So hopefully you'll be able to see this again if you missed some key points this evening. And most importantly, there are snacks and drinks available in the cafeteria. So we had those before. We're also going to continue that service after the talk as well. Free will donations. You'll notice down the center aisle in the back, there are a couple baskets back there. Please consider a donation as we kick off the parish campaign for a new digital signage out front, and that's for the school and for the church. Dr. Ray, our distinguished guest this evening, will be taking questions at the end of the talk. Just simply raise your hand. Myself and Deacon Jerry will come to you with a microphone, and you'll be able to ask Dr. Ray the question. He's also selling some incredibly informative books and impactful books back there. So please see the Helm Camps in the back of church. The Knights of Columbus also have an information table in the back of the church. It is by the confessional. And Father, I don't know if that was a message or not, but so the Knights will be back right outside the confessional doors. If this isn't your local council, don't worry, just come back and talk to the Knights anyways, and we can point you in the right direction in your local area. Also, the Knights are going to continue on with the Adult Faith Formation Series. So after this, for the next 3 Sundays, there's going to be some similar content from another gentleman, Dr. Brant Petrie, and that's going to be Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. in the 6th grade classroom. And that is not just for Knights, that's for everybody just like this. Okay, that is it for general housekeeping. So tonight, we have a very special guest who is widely known across the globe, particularly in the Catholic communities. Dr. Ray Guarendi, aka Dr. Ray, is a practicing clinical psychologist with over 40 years of experience working with parents, families, educators, substance abuse programs, inpatient psychiatric centers, juvenile courts, and private practice. He is indeed an authority on parenting and behavioral issues. Dr. Ray is active in the Catholic media as a professional speaker, a national radio and television host. His radio show, The Doctor Is In, can be heard on over 440 stations. His EWTN television series, Living Right with Dr. Ray, is aired in 140 countries. And he is a well-known author of 20 books. In addition to these impressive accomplishments, Dr. Ray is a father of 10 wonderful children and a husband to an incredible wife. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Ray.
Coming into town, I expected to see a sign that said Mayberry. This is a beautiful little town. I would just love to be here at Christmas time. Father's Mass, nice homily, Father. I took 7 of those things. And by the way, one of them I'm going to send to you. I saw the petition. My wife is a convert to the Catholic faith. She struggled with confession. She understood the reasoning. She couldn't get it through her head that when you go to confession, you got to confess your own sins, not your husband's. Bless me, Father, Ray has sinned. She made her first confession when she was 39. Now, gentlemen, you read these marriage books, they all tell you the same thing. Be on your knees for your wife. Okay, fine. Goes in the confessional, I get on my knees. And I stay there the whole time she's in the confessional. So I took a week off from work. She came out. Well, honey, what do you think? I feel clean, Ray. Good. So that's good. So what'd you tell Father? I'm not telling you that. You can tell me you're not bound by the seal. I'm not telling you, Ray. I figured it out. You want to know what your spouse or your kid tells Father in the confessional? Kind of got to go in the back door. So, honey, what did you get for penance? If you know what they got for penance, you can kind of reason backward to how rot gut they were. She said, I guess I could tell you that. I got a rosary. A rosary? Not bad for 40 years of pagan muck. She said, with the stations of the cross at every bead. Oh, okay. Kind of wish you'd have told me that before I married you. I still got to kiss you. Then she asked me this. What do you get, Ray? Me? Most of the time? Half a sign of the cross. Sometimes a quarter. That's hardly enough time to levitate. Part about the 10 kids is true, and that's why I'm here. It's quieter here, and it smells better. People find out I got 10 kids, I always get this. Okay, now that you have your own children, what have you learned? Learned something very critical. I rarely took them out in public. You take them out in public, invariably they're going to pull some stunt, embarrasses the heck out of you. If people know you're a shrink, it's worse because you can almost hear them thinking out loud, let's just see what Mr. Psycho Man does about this one. I figure it this way. Many of you have raised your children. You know this. We get our vengeance. First 9, 10 years of life out in public, they embarrass us. After that, Pop, you embarrass them. Oh, man. Come on, Dad. Don't wear the pants with the feathers. Dad, don't wave at me when people are looking right at us, and I'm not going to pull your finger. Why do you suppose people seek me out? Parents, grandparents? More than any other reason. Discipline. Okay, Mr. Expert Man. You tell me how to get him to stay in bed. I can't get him to stay in bed. Chews his way down through the bedroom floor, drops into the family room. I'm back. You'll never be free. You'll never have another child. I'll be in your bed till I'm 16, that's why. And that girl's mouth, that snotty, snarly, you know, if I'd have talked to my parents that way, my head would have been rolling down the hallway. And the school people, they don't help. You know what they did last year? They closed during June, July, and August. I actually had to live with my own child during the daytime. How much am I supposed to be able to take? Many of you have raised your children. I believe you're the last generation who knew across the board who the parent was. You parented out of a mindset, I am dad, you are not. Nowadays, we got these young people so skittish, overthinking, overanalyzing, reading the shrinks, wondering what they're doing wrong. If you leave him on the pot for 4 minutes too long, he's going to grow up to be a tattooed face motorcycle gang member on Springer. You named him John because you were hoping it would help in the toilet training. I was 3 years old when I said this to my mother. I don't like you. She looked at me, Raymond, you're a little behind. Stopped liking you last year. That was back before you could psychologically smack parents around, you know. One of my kids tells me I don't like you, so what? I got 5 or 6 who do. Any given moment, I got a 50% approval rating. Parents will say to me, grandparents will say to me, this discipline thing is tough, boy. Give me a strategy that I can discipline less. I got it. I developed it. Best I ever seen. You want to discipline any kid less? Do one thing. Lower your standards. Get them low enough, you don't have to discipline at all. I told you, quit doing drugs in the living room when we have company. You discipline, dear people, whether you're a parent or grandparent, because you love. Because you can't establish morals and character about it. You know what I don't like about the phrase tough love? It makes it sound like it's a different kind of love. Love is love. It's not tough love. It's love. I'm teaching you how to live in this world. Lots of times people will say, well, I feel guilty when I discipline. I'm not sure of myself. Maybe I'm being too mean. Maybe they'll think I don't like them. Maybe I'm doing something psychologically incorrect. If we don't do it now, they will. Judge, landlord, army sergeant, police officer, employer. I shudder at this next one. Wife. Somebody's going to teach them. The world hurts. I'm fond of telling folks discipline without love may be harsh. Love without discipline is child abuse. Because ultimately that kid's going to get hurt. He's going to get hurt real bad by those folks out there. There's an interesting phenomenon that occurs in my office. A parent will come in, describe a litany of trouble about this long. Then they'll say this. I think I'm giving you the wrong impression. Overall, he's a good kid. And I'll ask, how's that? Well, he's not on drugs or anything like that. One of the new moral high bars, Father, he's not on drugs. I ask my clients, what do you want looking back at you at age 22? What would you hope to be able to say? No guarantees now, but hope. If you're content to say, well, you know, given the way kids are turning out nowadays, I'm counting my blessings. Parole officer says one of the nicest kids he has. I tell him, you don't have to parent that hard. You don't have to grandparent that hard. Folks, you are not like them. I'm telling you that right now. I live in this world of parents and grandparents. You are not like them. Look at you. You're sitting on a Sunday night, late winter, listening to some shrink prattle on about parenthood, grandparenthood. You're different. You're faith-filled people. Well, either that or you got no life whatsoever. The culture doesn't think like you. It doesn't. Go to the computer and type in child, self-esteem, search. Last I looked, well over 100 million options. The experts believe self-esteem is the apex moral virtue. Although the research says it's not related to much of anything. Type in child, humility, search. You'll find a fraction. When's the last time you heard a secular expert talk about humility? Humility is at the very center of what we believe in virtues. My humility is something I'm very proud of. I'm going too fast for that whole section right there. I got a new book coming out. 3 Most Humble People I Know and How I Taught the Other 2. Can you imagine our Lord going up to the apostles? Simon, there for a while I toyed with changing your name to Peter, but I decided against it. I didn't know what that would do to your self-image. I mean, you've always seen yourself as a Simon. I go changing your identity now in your adulthood. I don't know what psychological ill effects that might have. But I'll tell you what, I've spoken to my father. He agrees. You're gonna run this operation. If you can conceive it, you can believe it. If you can believe it, you can achieve it. 12 more weeks of Tony Robbins management courses, Simon. You'll be in charge. Probably not. I always wanted to go to confession like the politicians. Bless me, Father. Mistakes were made. And I would like to apologize if God took something I said out of context, misunderstood it, became offended by it. I'm sorry for his sensitivity. At one point, my children were 12, 11, 10, 10, 9, 7, 4, 3, 2, and baby. The remote broke. No, my kids are all adopted, all 10 of them. I don't know if any of you are adopted parents. This is a great benefit of adoption. Agencies don't tell you this. You adopt in December, you still get the tax deduction for the whole year. Yeah, they pay for themselves that first year. Then you start to fall behind because they eat more. But my wife and I have this ongoing conflict. It's gotten worse as we've gotten more children. Ladies, I believe you will agree with me. First of all, my wife does not work for a living. I don't know what she does. Quote me out then I was even here. I've seen what the woman does. Want no part of what the woman does. When the kids were little, she'd take them to a grocery store. I'd go. If I was heavily sedated, I would go. You had to see it. Strung out behind her like ducks. Hands at their sides. They wouldn't deviate 6 inches either way out of a straight line the whole 2 hours they were in there. No, they wouldn't. Leg irons wouldn't let them. I got 3 white kids, 2 Hispanic kids, 2 biracial kids, 3 black kids. People would look at my wife. Some of them were pretty bold. Is this some kind of club or something? Some of them wouldn't say a whole lot, but I could read their eyes. That major dork don't realize them ain't all his. I suspect her, but I can't catch her. My children have what the experts would call risk factors. In psychological parlance, a risk factor is anything that would make a kid tougher to raise. Poor prenatal care, poor postnatal care, abuse in the womb, neglect in the womb, high maternal stress, low birth weights, heavy drug exposure, crack, narcotics, barbiturates, heroin, cocaine, nicotine, marijuana. My son Peter, birth mom was told, you're pregnant, don't worry about it. There's a blood clot growing next to the baby. Baby grows, blood clot wins, baby dead. Problem solved. Well, the problem made it. He was born 2 months premature, 1 month intensive care. But Petey made it. My daughter Elizabeth. Birth mom got pregnant in the 7th grade. She was 13. She went to Akron, Ohio, solve her problem. She didn't realize she was in. Now, in the old days, when I used to do a lot more secular talks, you're a pro-life group. Many of the groups I talked to, at best, were amateur life. I'm going to have to cut this a little short here, Father. And I watched their faces. They didn't like it. Some of them were just hostile. But I wanted to say, why are you so hostile? I'm just telling you what it is. Because that little girl was in her 7th month of her pregnancy. And in the 7th month, the babies are about this big. I mean, you can't flush them out, suck them out. You got to pull them out. And they don't come out in one piece. You got to crush their skull. You got to rip their limbs off. You got to tear them apart. That's how you get them out. And that little girl panicked. She left. She called us the next day. We were not expecting a 10th kid. We thought we were done at 9. I guess you could say Lizzie was an unplanned adoption. We weren't practicing safe phone. My son Samuel, 2 weeks before due date, 35-year-old birth mom was told something's very wrong. Can we test? Tentative diagnosis, corpus callosum agenesis, severe neurological birth defect. Worst case scenario, institution for life. You got to believe everybody in that birth mom's whole world was against her giving birth to Sammy. He went against her whole world to do it. Sammy just recently got out of the Army. He was known as Sergeant G at Fort Hood. It was a shadow on the ultrasound. The test was totally inaccurate. So my kids have this confluence of developmental yuck, gunk. And that's one thing we always tell them too. We say, your birth mom loved you enough to give you life when most of her world may have been against this. It's their biggest reason for loving their birth parents. They gave them life. So my kids have this confluence of developmental yuck, gunk. It should make them harder to raise and slower to socialize and slower to form consciences and more learning problems, more impulsive. Yeah, I got something like that. I would not consider any of my 10 children strong-willed. Oh, this dude is one toke over the line, sweet Moses. How could you have 10 kids under those circumstances, not consider any of them strong-willed when, folks, you now know the adjectives most often leveled at our kids and grandkids. Mind of her own,
Stubborn streak, a mile wine. This child is so determined and independent, very active youngster, very high maintenance youngster. 7 gone on 17, 7 gone on 17. Challenging child, very challenging child. We have a difficult child. Difficult child is redundant. That's an intellectual joke. I'm just kind of seeing who here. Am I delusional? I think there's a simple explanation. The strongest willed of my 10 kids is not stronger willed than his mother. We got so many strong-willed kids out there. The big people have lost will. We're not as sure of ourselves. We're not as confident. Many of you raising your kids, you had the look. Remember the look? You look at a kid now, he looks back at you like, what are you looking at? You want a piece of this? Father, my dad used to bounce the look off our heads all the way down to the end of the pew. By the time it got to me, I had enough juice left in it that I wet myself. We'd get up, go to communion. I'd come back, stand at the edge of the pew, let my sisters go in, and the Italian Catholic ladies would be thinking, look at that. He's going to be a priest. I know. No, he'll skip priest, straight to cardinal. That wasn't it. I wasn't going to sit through the mass announcements at the end in urine. That was not going to happen. Sometimes I'll tease my clients. What would your mother have done had you talked to her the way your daughter is talking to you? No. I didn't. Why not? You were a teenage girl once. I may have felt like it, but I didn't do it. Why not? I knew. You knew what? Something would happen. What? I don't know. Why don't you know? It never happened. Why didn't it happen? I never did it. Why didn't you do it? Something would have happened. What? I don't know. Who's on first? I don't know. Third base. It's an Abbott and Costello routine, but you see what it speaks of, dear people. I call it the perception of authority. Many parents will say, I never would have dreamed of doing this. Well, I said, did your parents have all kinds of education in child development? No. My mom was a farm mom. Well, what was different? Perception. Somebody asked my wife once, what would you do if one of your kids refused discipline? If you told them to go to the corner and they refused, or if you told them it's time to go to bed, please, and they refused. If you told them to write an essay of apology handwritten and they refused, what would you do? My wife said, I don't know. And the lady said, what do you mean you don't know? And she said, they don't refuse. Why? Because at age 2, she showed them very clearly, this is what's going to happen if you refuse. You misbehave, okay, you'll get disciplined. It's not going to be that big a deal. You refuse, discipline jumps to here. Because that's defiance of authority, and that's when it gets ugly. And if you don't have authority, you go to this priest and you say, it's me, Father. Okay. Before I had children, I was pretty nice. Now I'm not pretty or nice. And I just want to ask you, okay, I wouldn't do it, but how big a sin is it to think about shooting your child with a bazooka? I mean, is that a big sin? My dad dropped out of high school during World War II. He wasn't what the experts would call psychologically slick. My dad's discipline worked about 50%. That's sky high. How's he doing it? 2 things. He loved me desperately, and I knew that. He meant it, and I knew that. My dad told me, Raymond, I told you to leave your sister alone. Sit down, please. Don't get up till I tell you. I sat down. Didn't dream of challenging him and throwing a fit and coming out of the corner 26 times and look at him like, who's going to make me? You? Dream of it. Why? I knew he meant it. I knew he was going to act. He wasn't a jackbooted thug. Matter of fact, he probably didn't discipline me all that much. If you have decent authority, you don't discipline all that much. It's when you don't have authority that you feel like you're on them constantly because you're doing that. But my dad did make me neurotic, some of the things he said. Raymond, you shut your mouth and eat. I'll teach you to backtalk your mother, young man. Come on, Dad, I already know how. I'll show you to hit your brother. Go ahead. You fall out of that tree, break both your legs, Buster. Don't come running to me. 6 of my kids we got at infancy, 4 we got later. The twins had a wretched history. We got them when they were 4. Birth mom ingested every toxin she could get a hold of. We don't know where the kids were the first couple of years of their lives. Children's Services finally caught up with her and put them in foster care. Foster parents were sweet people, but they didn't discipline them. They felt guilty. Remember what I said about love without discipline's child abuse? We've since found out that my son and daughter, John and Joanna, had a chance to be adopted twice before us. We were not the first family picked. We already had 4 kids. They weren't looking at us. First 2 families met the kids and reacted. No. We were hoping for something maybe a little more along the lines of a child. See what I mean, dear people? World put a consequence on those 2 little ones. Loss of a mom and a dad. Twice. Why? Because the big people didn't do what the big people needed to do, and other big people looked at him and said, not you. You're warped. I got to admit, it didn't look too good. First visit there, Johnny punches me in the face. Attempts to strangle my wife, kicks the foster father about 14 times during one of his multiple eruptions. We walked out of there, and my wife had developed a tick. She was just going like this. And she said to me, Ray, we got to rethink this. I don't think the tax deduction's worth it. I said, honey, I got 2 tax deductions plus the credits. They never made John go to bed. He caused all kinds of chaos at night for a couple of years. So the first weekend visit to our house, my wife says, Raymond, why don't you put the children to bed tonight? Honey, I'll give you $100 if you do it. I don't have time for that. I'm writing a parenting book. All right, guys, come on. Let's go. Heading for bed. Now, everybody came running except Johnny. Johnny just stood there. No, go bad. Little language delay. I'm not a big fella, but in my younger years, I was a power lifter, and I still lift weights. So one thing I know for certain, I am stronger than the biggest, baddest 4-year-old in the whole world. The child is going to bed. The question is he going to cooperate? So I went over and I bent down, kind of like the veterinarians tell you, don't tower over a wild animal. Let him smell your hand. Put my hands on his shoulders. He could tell by my grip, this is how, shall we say, a non-negotiable psychological interface. Now, at that point, he erupts. Head starts spinning around. Green stuff's coming out. He's leaking out of every body orifice. Father, I don't know if this is theologically correct, but I got this theory that God put holes in him to leak off the pressure. Now, most leakers are up here, but you can get leakers down here. You can't. And sometimes you get pukers. Now, the interesting thing about a puker, they develop out of it. I mean, you can't get yourself so distressed that you start to throw up. After a year or 2, you just can't do it anymore. But wouldn't it be great if you still could? He picks you up for the first date. You're not real crazy about the guy. He says, can I call you again? You just go over to his passenger window, lean in. Even he could read that nonverbal. Johnny wasn't going to go to bed, so I picked him up over my head. Perception. I carried him to bed. I put him in bed. I put my hands on him and just held him completely immobile. He'll move. But we'd already said prayers. We'd already brushed teeth. We'd already done the bedtime ritual. Johnny, bedtime, son. Daddy's not going to let you get up until I decide. You're going to stay. Please, don't get up after I leave. I'll come. You should have seen the look in his face. I went from Disney World to the county jail. My son Andrew was 6. At that point, we had 6, 5, 4, 4, 3, 1, and I couldn't let Johnny roam the house. I had to stop it dead in its tracks. So Andrew's in the top bunk. Andrew, would you please talk to your brother? Johnny, Daddy says go to bed. You better go to bed. Remember one time? I didn't go to bed. You're not going to like what's going to happen, Johnny. You know that? You think he's going to leave? He doesn't leave, John. He goes out in the hallway. He'll wait for you. You come out, he'll crack your bottom. He don't care what the caseworker says. Andrew, that's enough. You sound like Mom. How long you think I had to hold that boy before he went? Under a minute? How could that be? Under a minute? 2 years of resisting bedtime and under a minute? Is that because I'm such a great disciplinarian? No. My wife's a far better disciplinarian than I am. Exception. He read me. This guy looks like he means it. This guy's going to follow through here. It's going to happen. Plus, I had a tattoo put right there. Said "Born to Kick Butt." I need a parent here with a maybe 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old at home. Do we have anybody like that? How old, ma'am? 12, a boy, girl? Name? What's her name, honey? Hannah, okay. With an H? No, H. That's all right. So, Mom, you go home tonight. You tell Hannah, I was down there at the church listening to that shrink fella, that Ron Ganoli or Roy Ganeri or Rick Gandhi, whatever that dude's name was. He taught me something, honey. He taught me I have been wrong for a long time, and I'm sorry. Now, that's a great way to introduce new discipline because it fluffs them up before you drop them. Hannah, honey, I've been letting you talk to me in ways that are no good for you and no good for me. I'm sorry. That's my fault. I'm the parent. New house rule, honey. From this point forward, if you get disrespectful in any way, arguing, tone, looks, body language, Hannah, and if I get a whiff of it, I'm going to start you off with a 300-word handwritten essay on respect each and every time. If you argue with me, I'm not going to argue back. I'm just going to say 350, 375. Do I got four? I got four. I got four. I got four. Four. Got 425. I got 425. I got 425. Now, Hannah looks at her mom as if to say, is that what you learned at your parenting talk? What are you going to do? You know, that sounded pretty good in there with that shrink fella, but he don't know Hannah. That might work with some kids. She's not going to do that essay. I got to find something I can take from her. Yeah, I'll take it. I'll put it in the trunk of the car. I'll back the car into the lake. That'll work. She won't get it back. Mom, Hannah has absolutely no grasp of what you control. Electrical outlets, utilities, laundry service, food service, money supply, transportation, all links to the outside world, computer chips, the airwaves. You control a lot. So until you get that essay, which is now 500 words long. She couldn't shut her mouth the first time through. She's on what one of my clients called blackout. Blackout is total cessation of every single perk and privilege at Hannah's hands until Mom gets that essay. I don't know how Hannah's gone to school because she's going to have to pack her lunch because there's no money supply. And there's no transportation, so can't go to practice. She'll have to call her coach. Favorite shirt? Oh, that's gone. Favorite hoodie? That's gone. Makeup or anything like that, if she's using that at age 12, that's gone too. Hair dryer, curling iron, that's gone. You wash your clothes, don't wash anything she likes. Any kind of technology is gone. Favorite everything is gone. If you go out to eat, she doesn't eat. She can make a sandwich before she goes. She's going to work on her essay. You haven't got your essay yet. Is this cruel? Is this smashing a gnat with a sledgehammer? Dear people, the average American parent cannot quietly one time, calm tone of voice say, you know what, honey? That's disrespectful. You go to your room. Your night's over. Or a little 5-year-old, go to the corner, please. And they go. I ask that to parents in my office all the time, and they're good people. These are not bad parents. If you told him to go to the corner one time, would he go? Sometimes. Who decides the sometimes? Well, he does. Exactly. You can black out a little 5-year-old. That's really great. Everything they ask for. Oh, no, I was going to give you a piece of cake. No, I haven't got my corner yet. Oh, no, we're going to grandma's. You can't play with your cousins. I got my corner yet. Your stuffed animals are all on the refrigerator top there, honey. I haven't got my corner yet. It's not mean. You don't have authority, you get mean. It's real simple. We're a microwave culture. We want results. We want them certainly. I fall prey to this. I get up in the morning, stick my mug in the microwave, punch it 60 seconds. And then down around 30 seconds, I'm doing this. And got all minute. Let's go. This has impacted parenting. It's impacted everything we do. How long is this going to take? How long is it going to take? I have tried everything with this child. Nothing works. Finally, I got so frustrated, I sent him next door to play. Moved the family while he was gone. Father, you ever had anybody come to confession and go, bless me, Father, for, well, why don't you just bless me, okay? Because as old as I am, I don't have any sins left. I mean, how long does it take to conquer a sin, huh? 10 years, 15 years? Come on, that's plenty of time to conquer a sin, ain't it? Or are you like me? Bless me, Father. Here's the list. It's the same stuff I've been telling you the last 30 years. Now, see, we're allowed to do this, but if a kid, after 3 months of visiting the corner, doesn't go, I've been so blind. I see what you're saying. That's why you're the grown-up. I'm the child. It's all so clear to me now. Let's hold hands, sing Kumbaya around the campfire. You hear this gentle parenting stuff? Oh, I like gentle parenting. Fills up my office. Gentle parenting. It's a reflection of our culture's abandoning Christianity. G.K. Chesterton said the one doctrine of Christianity that has ample proof is fallen nature. Well, gentle parenting assumes no fallen nature. Gentle parenting assumes children are reasonable. You just know how to reason with them. They're eager to please. They want to do what you want them to do. You just got to know how to talk. If that's not true, gentle parenting is going to blow up in your face as it does. And then by the time the child is 7 or 8 years old, the parent doesn't like the kid and wonders, why is this? I've been a gentle parent all this time. And because it's just the nature of humans, fallen. Of course, if you don't believe that, then you're going to just assume you can reason with a 3-year-old. My mother was over, she's babysitting, my wife is babysitting my daughter, her kids. And there's a book on their shelves. It's called No Drama Discipline. And she was reading to me a couple sections out of it. These books have ruined parents. And it said, don't tell a child, pick up your shoes. Instead, you say, did you notice that your shoes were there? And they're going to go, oh, why, thank you. I didn't notice. Are you really saying, I'm reading between the lines here, Father. Are you really saying you wanted me to pick up? I'm going to do that with a state trooper. Next time he pulls me over, I'm going to say, sir, don't say don't speed. Say, did you notice you were speeding? Alexander, Bell, you guys embarrass me when I'm on the phone. You know that? People call here, I sound like a crazed lunatic. We got a new house rule. From this point forward, when I get on the phone, please be respectful. That includes this. I'm going to excuse myself from the phone. I'm going to put you in your rooms for the call so I can speak in peace. If you come out, I'll ground you for the day. Now, my clients will say to me, how long will I have to do that before I get respect on the phone? I'll answer. 25 times? 45. 85. I really have no idea. That'll be $100. I always tell them, I can give you all kinds of ideas. I can't give you the will to do it. That's where it breaks down. It's not that you don't know what to do. You don't do what you know. You won't get away with this. Oh, hello, Father. How are you? Sure, thank you. We would be flattered to be the role model family for the church children love in. Father, would you just excuse me for 1 second, please? I'm going to have a little love chat with the children. Yeah, they're precious blessings from God. You know how that is. Wish we had 8 or 9 of them. Yeah, they're getting kind of antsy, Father. We're half hour past rosary circle. Oh, yeah, we still pray it on our knees in Aramaic, kneeling on broken glass, except when we're levitating. Doesn't everybody? Okay, Father, well, we love you too. I'll get him on a speaker. Peace to you, Father. Harmony. Aquarius. Thank you. Just a second. You're going to die. I'm going to rip your tongue out of your throat, wrap it on the fence with a buzzer to pick at you, little maggot. Get away from her. What's that, Father? No, that's a neighbor lady. You've been talking to her kids like that for years. We do pray for her. She needs prayers. No, we'll invite her, but she won't come. She doesn't like kids. Culture says why? A culture says, will you tell me why that person's like that? You know, one of the most common questions I get as a shrink nowadays. By the way, I've been shrinking, as this gentleman said, for over 40 years. I used to be like 6'9". One of the most common questions I get, will you please tell me how to make somebody else be different? A heck of a time helping you to be different. And we don't look this way first for why someone might be a certain way with us. We just look that way. I do marriage counseling. Once every 5 or 6 years, I would like someone to come into my office and begin like this. You know why I'm here? Because it has finally occurred to me, I am extremely difficult to live with. And I had to drag my spouse in here because I want my spouse to help me take a hard look at myself so I can improve. No. Fix him, fix her. And we do this with kids, see. I don't see kids. I don't really spend much time working with kids. I work with the grown-ups, the big people, the parents, the grandparents. That's where the change takes place. Unfortunately, we are a culture that says, problem is you. There's something called letter overload. Here's how it works. You take a kid, you don't love them, you don't discipline them, you don't give them stability. From malignant neglect all the way out to permissive, spoiled, rotten, self-centered indulgence. Some children need this much parenting. You're parenting here, you got twice what you need. Some kids in the same family need this much parenting. You don't get up there, this kid could get really ugly, aggressive, nasty, defiant, belligerent, despicable, conscienceless pieces of conduct. All too often, a guy like me does this. I've assessed the child. The child is disordered. The child has letters. The child has ODD, ADD, ADHD, LSMFT, IRS, EIEIO. I start flinging letters all over him. ODD, oppositional defiant disorder. Most common disorder labeled. It's not a disorder. It's a summary label. That's all it is. It's a description of a bunch of bad behavior. ADD, ADHD, 2 separate neurologically based conditions. Most likely the tail end of the temperamental continuum. But these letters are pouring down on our kids in obscene quantities. The number of kids who are medicated. I heard a statistic just recently. 30% of adult women are on psychotropic medication. What is happening here? Especially with the kids. If the big people don't do what the big people need to do, the little people start to reflect it. When the little people start to reflect it, the big people turn around and go, what's wrong with you? So given that, what about diet? You know, diet, that's big, isn't it? Cut out anything red, cut out anything sweet, cut out anything artificial, cut out anything that remotely tastes good. Give them a dry cracked wheat, brown berry, tofutti sandwich on bean sprouts. This kid will get better math scores, kiss his sister on the lips before he paints murals on the church ceiling. And by the way, you're one of the few churches I've ever been. And I noticed that when I came in. Somebody said, you ever notice? I go, yeah, I did. And the only reason I noticed that is because Father's homily, and by the way, you're a good homilist, Father, very good. And I thought, man, this homily, he's better than I am. I noticed it because I was getting bored and I just looked up. I just started looking around, you know. Now, diet is enormously important for health and nutrition. Our kids' diets are atrocious. But the idea that if I'm going to eat this, I'm going to immediately act like this has a very weak link there. But that notion's been swallowed whole by our culture. He went to that party last night. He had 3 Reese's peanut butter cups, 2 cans of Mountain Dew, and a Kit Kat. He came home and torched the dog. Now, I told those people, no Kit Kat. It was the Kit Kat. Probably not. Birth order, middle child syndrome. I tell parents, you're that afraid of middle child syndrome, don't have an odd number of kids. Got an odd number? Have another one. Give one away. Wipe out that middle spot. Truth on birth order, it holds one place. Oldest only. Little bit, just a little bit. Tend to be a little more independent, a little more achieving. Maybe they develop a shade quicker. I don't think that's their position. We all change our styles. That first kid, you boiled everything she came within 50 feet of. Last kid, you throw him this big dirt ball, say, here, chew on that. Wipe your mouth off in the gas can before you come in the house. First kid, dual videotape of every burp and bowel movement he ever had. Last kid, 1 snapshot at the birth, 1 at the wedding rehearsal dinner. Hey, Dad, how come I got no pictures? It's not true, son. Your sister did a popsicle stick sketch of you in kindergarten. We kept it. Besides, you look like your sister. Use her pictures. First kid, you sneak into her room every night. You stick a mirror underneath her nostrils. Make sure she's still breathing. Last kid, you tell the dog, get out of the crib. Don't lick him in the face. No, I was talking to the baby. You don't know where that mouse been. Poor dog. Somebody asked my wife when our 9th one, Peter, was about 2-3 months old. Petey sleeping through the night yet? My wife said, I don't know if he is. We are. I mean, you kind of get to that point, you know? You grandparents are treacherous people. I got to tell you, you are. You lurk. You lie in wait for us to have children who do to us what we did to you. My mom was at our house some years back, sitting in the island right there in the kitchen, not saying a word. My mother's Italian. She's 100% Italian. So if she doesn't ask me if I'm hungry every 9 seconds, she's depressed. Ma, what are you thinking? Ray, I'll tell you what I'm thinking. I'm thinking you and Randy are getting very sloppy in your parenting. Huh? Elizabeth gets away with murder. Lizzie is the youngest. At the time, she was about 7. Andrew and Hannah tried this. You stopped them dead in their tracks. Lizzie, you take a picture. You put it in a Christmas card. Ma, wait a minute. Lizzie doesn't need all that much discipline. She's a very compliant child. I'll give you an example. Last night, I noticed it was about a half hour past her bedtime, about 3 a.m. All I had to say, Lizzie, bedtime, please. Immediate cooperation. She took out her cigarette. She put it in the ashtray. Other kids flick their butts on the floor, not Lizzie. In the ashtray. Don't tell me I'm getting sloppy. When I was in grad school, we got this idea that there was no differences between men and women, no differences between boys and girls. These are all just social constructs. That's all they are. No, I remember thinking then, well, this isn't going to last because it's so ridiculous and it clashes into the face of reality and research that it won't gain any traction. Well, it disappeared for a while and it's back with a vengeance. No differences between boys and girls, men and women, just socialized into different roles. That's all. You give a little girl a front end loader. She'll carry it around for 4 years and become a special ops tank commando. You give a little boy a baby doll. He'll carry it around for 4 years and become a nurturant preschool teacher. 50% of little boys will immediately rip the head off that baby doll and turn it into a machine gun. We are wired different. God says it. Human history says it. The research says it. For example, little girls, women, are more verbal than little boys, men. They talk earlier. They talk better. They talk longer. That's why if a mom drifts into a discipline trap, it's usually something along these lines. Talk, talk, nag, nag, repeat, repeat, negotiate. Talk, talk, nag, nag, repeat, repeat, negotiate. If a dad drifts into a discipline trap, it's usually something along these lines. Tolerate, tolerate. Oblivious, oblivious. Ignore, ignore. Kill. tolerate, oblivious. You ladies are so observant. You're detail-oriented. You're much more detail-oriented than we guys. You do. You notice everything about everybody at all times, forever. To be used upon men who get to a point in our lives, if we notice our wives are out there, we get extra credit. Hey guys, when's the last time one of our buddies did this to us? Yo, Rock, Max. You guys notice anything different about me? I've been alive a fairly long time, and I have yet to tell one of my friends, Leo, cute top. Women are sensitive too. The environment, stimulation. My little girls would come downstairs before Mass and do this. Sarah, what's the matter? Sarah, it's 25 feet from your bed to here. What could possibly have upset you in that distance? You're fine. This is touching me right here. I don't like the way this touches me right here. My socks are twisted. They got strings on them and they won't stay in a straight line. My boys would come down. James, is that pee on your shirt? You see it now, Dad? James, go pee outside. The world is our bathroom. First day of kindergarten, I asked my son, Andrew, how was school today, buddy? Okay. Good. So that's good. So what'd you do? Nothing. Or, ladies, if you have a very connecting, sharing male, stuff. What is the name of the lady who stands in front of you for 7 hours? I don't think she told anybody, Dad. Joshua says he got one called Teacher. I'll ask her if they're related. First day of kindergarten, I asked my daughter, Hannah, how was school today, baby? Well, okay, Daddy, Mrs. Bartley has 3 children, Jessica, Jason, and Ashley. I know their birthdays, favorite colors, middle names. I'll tell you those later. We did 12 activities. The pumpkin cutting activity, we started at 8:07. Is that a stupid time or what? Asked her with my best friend till 8:30. Then she got mad at me. I don't even know what I did. But Jessica told Tiffany I could be her forever friend till tomorrow at 9 o'clock. Now, Mrs. Bartley has this little brown mark right here. You can't tell it's there unless she goes over by the window and she stands kind of like this. If she does, the sun comes through, then she blinds out the clock, reflects a bifocal. On her window right there, a big round umbrella of colors. Daddy, I don't think anybody saw it, and I don't think she knew it was there. So I figured somebody better tell her. They both had the same teacher. Psychological correctness is a quagmire, dear people. Last 30, 40, 50 years, the onslaught of the experts, yeah, they can give you good ideas, but you got to sort through it. And keep in mind, most experts don't think like you. They don't come from your direction. I get a lot of people in my office who come to me because they said, you know, the last therapist I had didn't respect my deepest held beliefs. I'm trying to make my marriage work, and he keeps telling me, get out of it. All the time I hear this. Be very careful. You can learn, certainly. You can buy my books and tapes. Little subliminal advertising in there. Nobody heard it. Dear people, I'm going to tell you what can happen with your parent or grandparent is that you want to raise a kid that's godly, seeks God. Hey, you're going to go against the culture. You better know this. You know, if your kids or grandkids are 13 and they don't have a smartphone yet, you're in the bottom 5%. You know that, don't you? There's no way a kid should have a smartphone at 13. That's lunacy. Tell them, trust me. I've seen what it does, what it can do, what it will do. Just a matter of time. But we yield. So you have to stand strong against that culture. Not on your side. Take some questions? Now, I would have gone on longer, but seriously, given what you guys are paying me, you're lucky you got verbs. Okay. Let's take a few questions. I do have all the books down there on discipline, marriage, faith, emotions. My most recent one just came. How to get along. Diet. Oh, that works. Let's test. I can answer from here. By the way, I do develop polyps. I still get to work here. Oh, it's back. That must have been you got too close, huh? Oh, okay.
My mother said one time, it's amazing how when you get to be 20 years old that your mom and dad weren't so dumb after all.
Thomas, or not Thomas, Mark Twain. He said, when I was 18, nobody was dumber than my father. Amazing how much he learned by the time I got to be 21. Yes, ma'am.
I was just wondering how old your children are now.
Yeah.
Where they're at, because you talked about one having children.
37 down to 25. And interestingly enough, my 37-year-old, and just I was sitting in your parking lot talking with him for about 45 minutes. He's in Rhode Island. He's an engineer. My daughter Hannah is a lawyer, JAG lawyer for the Army. She's a lifer. She's lieutenant colonel soon. And I have one in prison. I do. I'm not joking. I have one in prison. Her birth mom was a crack prostitute, and Mary was just sadly distressed from the day she was born. We got her at age 2. She was odd and difficult and in multiple group homes. I was her guardian for years until finally she left and committed a very, very egregious crime. So she's in prison. She probably won't get out while I'm alive. So my wife and I visit her, and I think she's still in the faith, kind of, sorta. None of my kids have lost the faith. They're all at various levels of it. I got some going to serve the church, some probably, as I say, going to serve time. One gone to Penn State, one gone to State Penn. But I have 8 grandkids. Only 2 of my kids are married. The other ones are not yet married. And you notice that too with young women nowadays. They have a hard time finding a good Catholic guy, man. That is getting tough. When many of you were courting, there was a lot out there that you could meet and get to know and be Catholic and share your faith. Boy, oh boy, those days are really shrinking. So that's the situation with that. Interestingly enough, you never know how it's going to turn out. I'm going to tell this to all you parents. You never know how it's going to turn out. One of my kids, it was Mary's half brother. We adopted him. It was a buy one, get one free, a candlelight dinner club. You know what I mean? And he's probably the developmentally slowest of our children. And he quit high school 3 weeks before he graduated. He now makes the most money of any of our children. He's on a cruise ship and he works 90 hours a week. He makes $100K and he has no expenses whatsoever. You never know. You just never know. Yes, ma'am.
Father,
If they don't agree on discipline, you can establish a few house rules. You can decide, what are we going to do for disrespect? What are we going to do for short shirking? What are we going to do for technology? If they don't agree on standards, now that's a problem. Like if you say, I don't want them watching that TV, and he said, I ain't gonna hurt them, that's fine. I watched it when I was a kid and I turned out okay. And you're tempted to think, let's gather the relatives and vote. I tell moms this, and I'm going to tell you, this is what my experience has been. More often, it is the mom who has the higher standards. It's been my experience. However, more often, it is the mom who has the sloppier discipline. She talks too much. She negotiates too much. She reasons too much. She gets angry. So dad sits back there and goes, oh my gosh, which one's the 9-year-old? What happens is, the guys tend to take the back seat. They don't get immersed in this. I tell these guys, I say, hey, wait a minute. You got a good marriage, step in and protect your wife. Don't let that kid treat her that way. Do something about it. Now, the standard thing is a tougher ball game. You want to take him to church, he doesn't go. You don't want her to have a smartphone at age 12, he does. He lets your son play video games for 2.5 hours, and you're thinking, some of this stuff's rot gut. I don't even want it in my house. All right, those are marriage problems. They really are. And you got to decide how big the disagreement is, how far apart they are. But I always tell this to moms. Remember this. Remember this. If you have a kid who's, for example, being disrespectful, and you give them an essay, and they refuse, and dad somehow backs them up. Okay, remember this, Mom. You're the one who does more for them than anybody else in the house. You wash your clothes, you're not washing anything until you get the essay. You take her to practice, you're not taking her to practice till you get the essay. Dad's going to have to do it. All that stuff you control. Even if he doesn't agree, you still control it. You can tell her. And parents will do this with me. They'll say, drove my daughter to practice. She was just so ugly the whole time as I was driving her to practice. And I went, you drove her to practice? Well, yeah, she has practice on Tuesdays and Thursdays for cheerleading. And I go, you drove her to practice? Well, yeah, we usually do. Sometimes we have a carpool, you know what I mean? But it was my turn. You drove her to practice. What I'm saying is, listen, she's abusing you and you're just driving her to practice. No, turn around and go home. Say, I'm sorry, honey. You can't talk like that. I'm not taking you anywhere. You're not being mean. You're not being a jackbooted thug. You're just simply saying, hey, Columbo parenting. Oh, just one other thing. I almost think you thought I was going to take you to practice when you talk like that. I deal with that heavily in some of the books back there, honey. Talk about it. A couple more and I'll let you dear people go.
Ray, I enjoy watching you on EWTN.
Well, I can't even stay up that late, honey. I don't know how you do it. You know, they say 60 is the new 40, but 9 is the new midnight.
But it's 9 o'clock in the morning when I see you.
Oh, you watch it in the morning on Tuesday morning one?
Yes. But I wanted to ask you, if your children, we can see our grandchildren kind of moving away. They're just little. They're 7, 5, and 2. Want them. How do you?
Oh, that's
Without them being
easy.
mad at
That's really easy.
Okay, good.
You don't talk to them. There's advice given to mothers and mother-in-laws on their daughter-in-law's wedding day. Sit up, shut up, and wear beige. I give that advice to parents. Unless you are directly asked as a grandparent, you can't say. If this is a daughter-in-law, you're dead. The number one area of friction is mother-in-law, daughter-in-laws, second mother-daughters. And you've probably tried to say things and you saw they were not really received so well. So what do? We keep saying them. My wife and I say nothing to our children, even though my one set of grandchildren can be very obnoxiously. I'll say a word. Now, interestingly enough, my son Andrew, the one I was talking to here, he's not like that. He wants our advice. So he asked for it. He called us one time. Dad, can I ask you something? I said, is this about Rosie? Little girl. Yeah. You want my advice, Andrew? Yeah. Wait a minute. Here, sign this from the attorney giving me permission to say something. No, honey, you can't say a word. And you can't even, you got to watch your face. You can't even go, telling you, your daughter or daughter-in-law is going to see that with her back turned. You can't do it. But they're not baptizing the children. They're not baptizing the children at all. Yes, I know. And that's very common now. Very father sees it all the time. But you can't say a thing unless they ask, honey, because otherwise what happens is you destroy the relationship. And worst case scenario, they stop letting you see the kids. You don't have to get to that point, but it happens a lot. Yes, ma'am. You can, I'll tell you, you can. But you know, when grandparents will say that to me, I will say, tell them you read it first. And I liked what this guy was saying, but I don't know if you want to look at any of it, kind of thing. One more and I'll, yes, ma'am.
2 kids, well, I have 6 kids, but 2 of them have totally different parenting styles.
Yeah.
And for the longest time, I opted to try to parent as I saw them doing it, but one of the families was way out of line. So I parented more in my style.
Look out.
So that is it best to parent as they parent?
No. No, I, for example, my wife right now is watching my daughter's couple of children. And my wife called me when she says, we went to mass yesterday. I said, yeah, what happened, honey? She goes, well, they were remarkably good because I told them, this is what grandma's going to do if you guys act up at all during mass. And she said, they were wonderful. So we're babysitting. The parents are gone. They're out. So my wife's there for a week and a half. So yeah, we can do that. But no, I watch their parenting and I don't parent that way. I wouldn't parent that way. You know, it's the old give choices and the old, what do you really want? And kind of negotiating and try to be let's all just get along. And that's fine if you got a kid that cooperates. But if you don't, at some point, you have to say, this is the way it's going to be. But you don't do it. Don't parallel it. I see a lot of grandparents who say, I would like to spoil my grandkids, but I can't. They're already spoiled. They're already difficult, and I don't get to even be a grandparent. Yes, ma'am.
When my 2 granddaughters are growing up, every time my son and his wife would get into it with it, she'd always threaten me to take the grandkids away from me and not to ever let me see them again. Well, I put a stop to that.
I don't know how you did it, but
I did. I told her, I said, well, you just go right ahead. But I said, I'll sell every damn thing I got. And I said, I'll take you to court and I will see my granddaughters, whether you like it or not. Take that to the bank. She said, oh.
Well, that's an interesting, fiery approach. I'm surprised it worked for you. Here's what I do. I'm much more subtle. I have my will on a dry erase board in the kitchen. And I just go over, oh, really? Let's take one more and I'll let you dear people go. Nothing? No. Well, a lot of it depends on if they're living in your house. Now, parents will say to me, he's 23 years old. He's living here. And I'll say, well, is he cooperative? Is he helpful? Is he pleasant? If he's not, then you got to decide what you're going to do. You can't really discipline him at age 23 or 24, although it amazes me how many parents give him money. Actually, you can cut the money. But most parents will not say you have 2 months. If you don't straighten out, you have to find a place. Most parents, they will not do that. And you know why they won't? They're scared. He'll crash and burn. He'll get into drugs. He'll go live with his girlfriend. He'll live in his car. That's what happens. So here's the way the trajectory is. If the child is difficult or unmotivated or just kind of drifting along in your house, okay, so you tolerate it, hoping he's going to get to the point where he realizes, okay, I can't live like this. But if he doesn't, At some point, even the parent who is scared has had enough. And at that point, usually it gets ugly. And I always tell parents, you want to act before it gets ugly. Now, 2 of my kids, I had to out. One was 18, one was 19. Love them both now, wonderful relationship. But at that time, if you were going to do this, guys, you can't live here. That's the way it is. It didn't get ugly. I just kind of said, that's it. They're doing fine now. The one's on the cruise ship, as I said, and the other's making $100K a year, and he's a good boy. But at the time, he wasn't cooperative. My other son, the one I talked to here, he lived at home till he was 26. Getting a degree, pleasant young man, nice, cooperative. Okay, fine. Oh, there you go. Kind of really depends. Let me close with this. I know, and Father, I loved your prayer in the back of the hymnal there. Did you guys concoct that prayer yourselves? That's beautiful. I'll tell you what, that's the first time I've seen that. I believe this is a phenomenon never before seen in Christian history, which is the high percentage of people who leave what they were raised with. In much of human history, Christian history, what you were raised with, you stayed with. The influences were the family, the clan, the tribe. It's not the way it is now. Number one thing I deal with parents of the older generation is their kids have left the church. They're hostile, they're indifferent, or they're living morally as they wish, and it breaks the parents' hearts. Moms especially beat themselves up. Where did I go wrong? How did we fail? We did all the things we thought we were supposed to do. And this. I would like to take that guilt off of you right now logically. You can't argue with this logic, so if you want to continue to feel guilty, go ahead. But I'll prove to you logically, your days of beating yourself up are over. Pray for them, you can love them. The days of you flagellating yourself, done. Please just answer yes or no to these questions. Is there a God? Christ God? Was he sinless? Could he perform miracles? Did he have a perfect understanding of human nature? Could he get most people to follow him? Oh, I see. You think you're better at this than the God-man. Can you do a miracle? Can you even do a crummy card trick? Our Lord himself couldn't get most people to follow him, folks. Do we think there's some kind of spiritual formula, counterpart to psychological correctness that you missed? Like I say, I got some kids are going to say, I'd like to thank the Academy for this honor, and I got some going to say, I'd like to thank your honor for not sending me to the Academy. My wife and I said, we will never tie our peace to the adult decisions our kids make. We can't. How can we? I can't change them if they're not going to be open to influence or reason. And sometimes you got to know when to shut your mouth, man. I've seen so many more parents push their kids farther away because they didn't know when to shut their mouth. And part of the reason you didn't shut your mouth is because you felt bad. I got to fix it. I got to make it right. I blew it. No, you didn't. This is not a farm in 1880 anymore. As cloistered as this beautiful little town is, and it is, you still have the same kind of cultural stuff that's now pervading our society. I want to close with this. A lot of long-standing marriages out there, and I'd like to celebrate those. Elderly gentleman and his wife were shopping. She bends over, she picks up a can of cling peaches. She tries to walk out without paying. Woo! Goes before the judge. What'd you do? I stole a can of peaches. How many in a can? 12. 12 days in the county jail then. Her husband can't believe he's hearing that. Your Honor, please, may I speak up for my wife? Go ahead. She also stole a can of peas. That's a good one. Thank you so much for letting me be in your beautiful town.